everybody, it's Maria from cardbomb.com and I'm so glad to be here today creating for Tonic Studios. Today we're going to be taking a familiar technique and putting a twist on it. So we'll be watercoloring with Nuvo Shimmer powders, but we'll be doing it on black cardstock. I started my card out by selecting a sentiment from the stamp set called A Little Something for Harry. I'm using my Tonic stamping platform to get perfect placement, and I'm also using post-it sticky notes so that I can mask my sentiment off. I heat embossed my sentiment in white, and now I'm using my rectangle dies to cut out my mask. I'm going to be stamping on top of that mask, and having the mask there is going to help me get a perfect rectangle frame around my sentiment. I'm using a floral stamp from the Dainty Daisies stamp set, and I will be stamping it repeatedly in clear mark ink and embossing with clear embossing powder. I'm using a trick here with acetate so that I can put my dirty stamp on top of it and position it perfectly instead of having to clean it every single time I want to reposition the stamp. I'm going to stamp and heat emboss repeatedly until I've framed my sentiment all the way around with those beautiful florals. And you can see now that that mask helped me frame out my sentiment with a rectangle. So now I'm going to go ahead and start watercoloring with my Nuvo Shimmer powders. And of course I've gone for my usual go-to colors of Cherry Bomb, Solar Flare, Falling Leaves, Atlantis Burst, and Blue Blitz. Now this is the part where the technique starts to deviate from what we would do on watercolor paper. Of course, when we're watercoloring with Nuvo Shimmer powders on watercolor paper, we simply mix the powders with water. And that works because watercolor paper is made to absorb water and it can handle the water load. However, black cardstock is not as absorbent as watercolor paper, and so we have to do something different. So what I've done is, instead of mixing the Nuvo Shimmer powders with water, I've mixed them with rubbing alcohol. If you're in the UK, that would be surgical spirits. So this evaporates very quickly, and it enables you to essentially alcohol/watercolor with a medium that evaporates quickly and doesn't waterlog your cardstock. As you watch, you can see that that's really the only difference with this technique, is just swapping out the water for the rubbing alcohol or surgical spirits. I'm still able to get vibrant color, great shimmer, and good color saturation. Another thing that is interesting about this technique is that because these shimmer powders are slightly transparent when diluted, is that because we are using a dark cardstock for our background, some of the colors will change. So you can see that this Cherry Bomb that I'm using right now looks a bit more purple than it would if it were on a white cardstock. Some of these blues and greens look a bit darker as well. And I do want to tell you that if you mix your shimmer powders a little bit thicker, you can, I don't want to call it caking them on, but you can lay them down thicker and have them be a little bit less transparent. So on some of these I am doing one layer and then I'm going back over and giving a second coat so that the color from the shimmer powder will really show through on top of that black cardstock. Once I'm done laying down all of my color, then I'm going to grab for those masks that I made at the beginning. I don't know if you noticed I actually made 4 masks at once when I used the rectangle dies to cut out my masks. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that mask and put it right on top of my sentiment so that I can now add some splatters. So I've just added a bit more alcohol or surgical spirits to that blue-green color that I mixed up at the bottom, and now I'm using my number 2 paintbrush and my Tim Holtz poking tool just to splatter a light mist of that all over the background. And this ends up being so subtle but so beautiful. In real life, it's so much more sparkly than what you can see in the video. Now I'm using some white acrylic paint on that piece of acetate that I used earlier, and I really wish, I'm being honest, I really wish I hadn't done this. This was a new way for me to try and splatter, but it just didn't work out, and it flung strings of paint all over the card, and I would have been really happy with some splatters, but I do not love these strings, so I will go back and fix that in a little bit. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just using a little bit of extra shimmer powder to cover up the areas that I got some of that white paint onto on my floral images. So I'm removing that mask so that you can see the difference that does help that sentiment pop out. And then I use my heat tool just to make sure that everything's dry so that when I cut down my card face I won't be smearing any of the paint that I just splattered on the front. After I cut down this card face, I'm going to layer it onto a piece of Craft Perfect Pearlescent cardstock in Fresh Mint. Look at how pretty that is. I love all the sparkly sheen, but it's not overkill and there's no glitter in this paper. It's just smooth and shimmery, and I thought it would be really great for layering for this card. Now I'm going to grab my Nuvo liquid adhesive and adhere these two layers together. Then I'm going to grab my Tonic creasing tool and burnish the back of this so that those papers are adhered really well together. Then I decided I wanted to frame my sentiment out, so I grabbed a white gel pen and a T-ruler, and I've made my own little frame for my sentiment. I wanted it to stand out a little bit more, but I didn't want to go ahead and die cut it out and pop it up, because I liked the look of it being nearly a one-layer card. The next thing I did was grab a Sakura black gel pen and go over the edges of the floral images just to clean them up a little bit. Next, I adhered my card face to the card base using foam adhesive, and then I grabbed my Nuvo crystal drops in Neptune turquoise and added some embellishments to the front of the card. At this point, I thought I was going to be done with the card. I thought that I'd leave those white splatters the way that they were, but I just decided I couldn't do it. I disliked them too much, so I ended up grabbing a Sharpie and coloring over those lines as best as I could. I am a lot happier with the way that it looks now, and I did leave as many of the white splatters as I could. That is it for today, you guys. I'm so glad that you all joined me for today's card. I hope to see you back here really soon. For now, if you've enjoyed today's video, I hope you'll hit a subscribe on both the Tonic Studios YouTube channel as well as my own over at Card Bomb by Maria Willis. Have an amazing day, you guys, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye for now.